Niedzialek, followed by Lynn Kevanagh, Barry Ken McKay, Harley Ferguson, and Erika Ritter. Please go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Del. I'm the Director of Outreach at Little Rays Nature Centers. Many of you will already know me. In addition to that, I am also an independent professional consultant. I'm consulted by various institutions that deal with animals to do programs about safe animal training. I'm also hired specifically by City of Toronto partners, including the one with which you guys are developing your own educational programs as well. Although I'm very happy to see that you guys have extended the deadline for removing the exemption for educational programs so that we can continue the rest of the year with them, I am very disheartened to see that nothing has come to replace it. And one thing that I think has been missing from this discussion is the absurdity of a lack of an exemption for educational programs in light of the other exemptions that already exist for purely entertainment purposes. You currently have a bylaw exemption that specifically allows for petting zoos in high commercial areas like Exhibition Place. You have an exemption for any animals of any kind operated by anyone for filming purposes anywhere in the city. We have spent a lot of time in these consultations talking about things that I believe to be irrelevant and red herrings in the light of these other exemptions. We've been talking about exactly how much educational value how much scientific research is there for this particular program or that particular program, which seems to me to be a red herring given that there are exemptions for purely entertainment purposes. Furthermore, it's hard within 5 minutes to express the extent to which educational programs of this kind are happening in the City of Toronto. My organization alone reaches out to between 1 to 4 million Canadians per year. I don't know what portion of that is in Toronto. You've heard from several organizations that are in virtually every single school in the country, in the city. If this bylaw exemption is removed without replacement, you are going to be pretty much in the following situation. A highly trained scientist and educator from an accredited zoological institution like the Toronto Zoo will no longer be allowed to run an educational program in a school. It will not matter how educational that program is. It will not matter how much veterinary oversight, what the escape plan is, how many animal welfare policies are in place, or anything else. Meanwhile, a completely unqualified, untrained operator who simply wants to make money by filming animals will be allowed in the city, and it will not matter how little educational value that is, how little veterinary animal welfare oversight there is, or anything else. I would suggest to you that that is an absurd position to be in. Toronto will become the only city that I'm aware of in Ontario that allows the use of prohibited animals around the public for purely entertainment purposes without any exemptions that address educational purposes. And I just want to end off by reading just one out of literally thousands of pieces of feedback that we have received over the years. Hi there. I would just like to take a few minutes of your day to thank you, especially a particular Rays reptile keeper whose name I did not know for quite some time until visiting this website. His name is Kevin Dungy. When I was about 10 years old, this was about 8 years ago, by the way, Rays Reptiles came to my small hometown, essentially in the middle of nowhere, but that day changed my life. I spent the whole day there, from opening to closing. I learned so much and talked with Kevin, who showed me so much as well. I truly fell in love with the animals that day. It became my passion. That day, Kevin asked me where I wanted to go to university. I had no idea, in all honesty. But then he talked about an amazing university to get the best education for animal lovers and to pursue my passion in zoology. That university is the University of Guelph. And here I am, 8 years later, still passionate in animals, and even more so the University of Guelph. Kevin told me I would have to work very hard to get accepted, and I would like to thank Kevin because of his teachings. I have been accepted early based on my academic accomplishments to the University of Guelph for zoology. I could not be more thrilled, and I could not have done it without the help of this organization. So thank you and continue to be amazing. This is one of literally thousands of such letters that I could bombard you with. However, if this exemption for educational programs leaves the bylaw, instead of us receiving feedback like this, you guys will just be receiving thousands of emails from disheartened residents and educators who will not be allowed to have all of the programs that we provide to the rest of Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Niedzialek. Questions? Vice Chair Karjanis.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming in. We've heard from other experts that say that we shouldn't have this and children should not interact with these animals. I guess you disagree with that?
I disagree. However, What matters is who is the one facilitating the operation, what qualifications they have, and what standards they follow. Interacting with animals and children can be extremely unsafe, and it can be done extremely safely. My organization has been doing programming for over 20 years, specifically and predominantly with reptiles.
So do we
And
need,
there's not been a single instance of salmonella or E. coli or any of the other
do
things
we
possible
need
because
more
of good
time to
infection
reach
control
out to
policies.
community and stakeholders to make sure that we get it right?
Absolutely. And I would also suggest to you that the Ontario Ministry of Health, and by the way, I've developed Canada's largest pet therapy program, and the Ontario Ministry of Health is the one that regulates that, they recommend anyone who hires a company like myself to check if they are CASA accredited. That is their basic minimum standard for who should be allowed to operate with animals, either around children or around a nursing home setting or any
Mentioned about
immunocompromised setting and so on.
animals and handled by people that do the filming, and they're not qualified, and that will present itself an inequality.
Correct. That's what I find most absurd. And in some of my more cynical moments, I like to think if only, we made more profit off of these animals and worked in an industry like the movie industry, well, then people would look the other way. Unfortunately, we don't make a lot of money. We actually do our programs at a very, very, very cheap rate. In fact, we often do it for free in many cases.
You reach out to schools?
Oh, yeah, we do thousands of schools every year, absolutely.
How many schools do you do in the city of Toronto, roughly?
Couple of hundred, I'd say, roughly, in addition to city childcare centers, YMCAs, nursing homes, you name it.
If you could be cloned, would you be able to do more?
Oh, absolutely. I can't hire the number of summer staff I need to accommodate just the summer camp programs that we do, let alone the programs for the rest of the year.
If we were to legislate you or regulate you in the fashion that we're going to, will that put you, would that kill those programs?
It would severely limit them. We would be able to run some of them, but not others. We'd have to reformulate a lot of our current programming to decide which animals we could bring and where. It would be a great strain on us, yes.
How much feedback had you had from individual teachers, kindergarten, grade 1s, grade 2s, grade 3s, about the programs that you do? I mean, you read
Without any hyperbole, we could give you thousands of examples in the same vein of what I just read to you.
Do you believe it's important that we reach to those thousands of teachers and ask them their input versus just one individual?
Absolutely. There's more than enough work for my organization and many others to go around. We'll do just fine no matter what. The people who will suffer are the educators and the residents of the city who will be denied these programs.
Would you advise this committee that it's important for us to do extensive consulting among the educators?
Absolutely. And again, I just want to turn the fact to see whether you can square the fact that you are removing the exemption for educational programs only without removing the ones for entertainment. There is not a single concern that has been stated by anyone that I can tell that applies to educational programs that does not apply in orders of magnitude more to the entertainment exemptions that already exist.
In your opinion or professional opinion, however you want to cut it, us moving in this direction and not consulting with teachers, not consulting with stakeholders, are we doing the right thing or the wrong thing?
We are doing the wrong thing, and you guys are the ones that will be responding to the letters from those educators come next year if these programs are not allowed. And again, it seems city staff are already convinced of the value of these educational programs as they're currently developing their own as well.
So we are tuned to be barraged by hundreds, if not thousands, of emails as well as phone calls.
Yes, except there's one possible exception to that, because right now when we pick up the phone and a City of Toronto school or anything calls us, we say, yes, we can run your program this year. However, next year, if we are forced to say no, they will either send you an email saying it's very sad that I can't have this program, or they're going to call the next person or the person after that or find someone on Kijiji or some unprofessional operator to run that program for them, which also has obviously a lot of risks attached to it as well.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Council Fletcher, I believe that you have some questions.
I just heard you say the city staff are developing the programs of their own, and I'd like to know which programs they are.
Well, the ones that are mentioned in the city staff report that they're looking to develop educational programs, I believe those are specifically on responsible pet ownership.
Tell me who it is that's doing that.
I believe Positively Pets is one of the city partners that works with animals that are currently working to develop these programs with you.
Positively Pets is developing a program with the City of Toronto.
I believe that's the organization that is doing that, yes.
With Animal Services?
Yes, so they're in talks. In the report that came out just before this, the line that says the City of Toronto recommends developing its own educational programs, I believe that what that line is referring to is the educational programs that are currently being discussed with that City of Toronto partner, yes.
And that partner, and the programs, so you're telling us our programs are discussing using exotic animals?
On specifically, I believe the intention is specifically about the care of exotic animals. They were one of the people consulted for increasing or decreasing the number of animals on the prohibited list, and I believe the consensus of those meetings, as I understand it, was that in lieu of simply banning more animals, which, as you guys know, is not necessarily effective, that they should be running educational programs to provide people with information about the proper care of these animals instead of simply adding more bans.
And that's the city's position.
I believe so, yes.
I'll find that out later. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, thanks so much for your presentation.
Thank you.